Here, my man.
Hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. All right, we got a couple people on here, but people are joining as we're trying to get to the 220 mark. First of all, I appreciate you getting on here with me today. It's been a couple weeks since we've talked. So have you been good?
Yeah, man. Everything's great on our end, doing our thing. Things are getting more normal. We're back seeing clients again. So good to be
Yeah,
back in the normal swing of things. How about you? What's up on your end?
man, I'm good. Just doing some real estate and trying to keep up with the world. The main reason I wanted to get on here today is because I was going to call you about the email that that you sent out the other day to all your clients. And I don't like reading through that stuff because to me, it's just like gets all super confusing. But I wanted to call you and essentially have a conversation about, hey, what does this mean for, our real estate business? What does this mean for S Corp, C Corp, single member entities, LLCs? What does it mean for, independent contractors? What does it mean for people who just got laid off, because we're still hearing about that, even though jobs are coming back on board. And rather than just having a one-to-one conversation, I thought it'd be great if we record this, throw it up in the group, and kind of you and me discuss for a minute. And then anybody else that has questions, not everyone across the country and it's in these Facebook groups and email list has access to an awesome accountant such as yourself who, a lot of accountants are good at accounting, but not a lot of them stay up to date with all this kind of stuff and interpret it for their clients the way you do. So I thought that would be super powerful if you could just kind of maybe go over what has happened up until this point, if that new legislation has been signed and passed through Congress yet or not, and what that does mean for business owners. So that's kind of the goal and what I want to get out of it. I think I have about 30 minutes here. I'm not sure how much time you have, but it'd be great if we could go through that. And then if anybody has questions, perhaps we could answer them and then direct them to your resources where they can find more information on this.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Really enjoying the content you're putting out and things from the real estate side. Really cool to see you start developing a lot of these different things here and sharing
Absolutely.
everything on social media. It's really cool, man. And yeah, appreciate you having me. What I'll do is I'll dive into a little bit of background and the changes that just took place and got signed in, and then just open it up for questions and different things and let you all guide me from there. But so the main part of the topic I want to cover on the first part of this is the PPP side. That's the most recent changes. And that's seems to be the biggest area of confusion and concern for a lot of business owners, whether you're a small self-employed business or an S Corp, or you have 2 employees or 50 employees. This is impacting most everybody involved in business out there.
So what does PPP mean for those that may not have heard of it?
Paycheck Protection Program is essentially and this was part of the CARES Stimulus Act, and things started coming into play in March, and they passed a 880-page bill as part of the CARES Act. The PPP is a portion of that, and essentially its goal was to figure out how do businesses keep people employed? How do we incentivize them to keep people employed, keep their business open or operating as much as they can, even though essentially the U.S. is shut down for a lot of businesses and a lot of incoming customers. So the original part of the PPP said, hey, we're going to create a formula. If you're self-employed and have no employees, there's a formula. That formula is your average month's net profit for your Schedule C self-employed business for 2019. We're going to times that by 2.5, and that's your loan. And the PPP loan is subject to forgiveness under certain rules. They took the business side, said, we're going to take your average monthly payroll for 2019. We're going to times it by 2.5, and that's going to be your loan. And here's the caveat for businesses with employees. You got to spend this in 8 weeks. So the day you get the money, you've got 8 weeks to spend it. 75% of it's got to be on payroll. The rest can be on rent, utilities, or interest or mortgage payment.
And that 8 weeks has already passed kind of since that original, that was 2 months ago, right?
For a lot of people that they're 6 weeks in right now, or they're 8 weeks in, or they're 4 weeks in. The first version of PPP funds got exhausted. They opened up a second $290 billion funds are still out there. You can still get the PPP right now, but most
Really?
people got it early on and were struggling because their business wasn't open, but they were forced to pay employees. Some couldn't find employees. Their staff had gone, moved back home, went other places, were on unemployment and didn't want to come back to work. So businesses struggled to essentially figure out how to dump 2.5 months of payroll into 8 weeks.
And a lot of those people have not even been able to spend it. They got the money and they're like, well, we're not open. We're not paying for power bills. We're not paying for employees. And now we're going to get penalized for taking this money. Right.
That's right. They're going to have to pay it back, but plus a 1% interest. And so that really started a lot of conversation with the lawmakers, and they figured out businesses aren't able to reopen near as fast as we thought. Things aren't going back to normal as fast in the business, retail community, or the restaurant industry. So we need to revamp this PPP. This is causing more stress and doing more harm than good right now. So there were several different versions floated around. Finally, we landed on one a week ago that unanimously passed the House. It was like 417-1. It made it to the Senate. It got approved by the Senate, and it got signed by Trump on Friday. So Friday of last week, we have a brand new version of the PPP forgiveness, some major changes, drastically beneficial to the business owner. It makes a lot more sense from a forgiveness standpoint. And essentially the highlights are this: where you only had 8 weeks to spend the funds and 75% of it had to be on payroll, they've now opened that up to 24 weeks. So
does that go back in time and say, if I was the very first person to get this PPP money, are the rules going to change from what I was originally told to what happened on Friday, or is this only for new issuances going forward?
This is going backwards from the start. It changes for everybody. So essentially you have the choice now. You can play by the old 8-week PPP rule and go ahead and close it out and spend it all in 8 weeks if you're an old customer or a new customer of the program, or you can take the 24-week option. So now all the formulas are still the same. The loan amounts are the same. Nothing has changed from that format. But from a forgiveness side, you now have 24 weeks to spend the money as opposed to 8 weeks, and 75% no longer has to be on payroll. Only 60% has to be on payroll. So now you can allocate more of those funds to rent or utilities or interest payments across almost the rest of this year. So it really opens up that window for business owners and business owners with employees to where pretty much 100% is going to be forgiven now, no question. And they just took all the controversy behind the short amount of time and trying to essentially dump the money to now, as a business owner, you can wisely make decisions of when to bring people back, how many people to bring back, part-time or full-time. You have all the flexibility to control that now. They also lightened up a few other rules. They said, the old rules said you had to maintain a certain number of full-time equivalent employees, similar to you had going into the pandemic. And you had to have everybody hired back by June 30th. Now they've changed that. They said now they want you to get back to a similar full-time equivalent number of employees. You have until December 31st. But if you tried to hire people back and they didn't want to come, or if people left to take other jobs, or if you've replaced those people with similar people, there's all sorts of exceptions now that allow you to kind of get out of that rule. So pretty much from a business owner standpoint, if you're able to spend the funds mostly on payroll over 24 weeks and you have some rent and some utilities, which at least a cell phone or some version of rent or a mortgage payment, you're going to easily get 100% forgiveness, no questions asked. This 11-page complicated forgiveness form that came out about 3 weeks ago is going away. There's a much simpler form coming down the pipe. So things have gotten a lot clearer, a lot easier, and a lot more simpler for the business owner. Now, let me switch gears and tell you about the self-employed person.
Okay.
Because that's changed a little bit too. Self-employed people, which means you're a 1099 contractor or you file a Schedule C, or you're a sole proprietor that maybe owns some rental property, you don't have an S corp or you don't have a corporation, but you're still have your own business or version of business, you're under a little different forgiveness rules. So you were benefited from the start more so than the business owners with employees. On the self-employed side, the day you got your PPP money, 80% was forgiven off the top. Since you don't have employees and payroll, that part doesn't fall under your umbrella. 80% of your PPP forgiven from the start, which means you had to spend 20% of it over 8 weeks on rent, utilities, or interest or mortgage payments for your business or for your self-employed business. Well, now you've got, as a self-employed person, 80% is still forgiven off the top, and you have 24 weeks to now spend it on rent or utilities. So whether you're a real estate agent or somebody doing landscaping on the side, or somebody that owns multiple things inside of a self-employed operation instead of an S corp, or a business side of an entity, then your rules have been changed also. So pretty much across the board, unless it's a drastic rare situation, the PPP funds should be forgiven. You shouldn't fall under the payback rules. It should be an easy process to do that between now and December with your bank. The SBA is putting the due diligence on the borrower. They're not really doing any due diligence or audits on loans under 500,000.
Really?
Loans between 500 and 2 million, they're sample selecting, pulling some for audit. Loans over 2 million, they're auditing all of those to verify. So that's kind of what you're looking at. But let's say worst case scenario, and I had a few clients do this. They said, hey, I'm going to choose not to open back up right now. I'm going to choose not to hire people. I'm not going to spend any of this on payroll this year. I'm going to keep my 40 grand or my 80 grand or my 100 grand of PPP funds, because I'm scared when I open back up in November or January, or when I'm ready to open my business, that I'm going to need that money. So I'm just going to choose to treat it like a regular loan and pay it back. Well, under those rules, it's changed also. It was a 1% interest rate, 2-year amortization loan. Well, under these new rules that were signed on Friday, it's now a 1% 5-year loan. So your payback options, if you chose to go that route, have been extended as well.
And is that amortizing monthly, or is that a balloon with?
It's amortizing It amortizes monthly. It starts in 12 months and it's amortized monthly over a 5-year period. Okay. So that's kind of a quick crash course in what's happened on Friday, and this new flexibility portion of the bill that was signed by Trump on Friday and is now in place. And also, while we saw changes to all this almost weekly over probably a 6-week period, I think this will be the last piece of changes. Yeah. I don't think we'll see anything else moving forward. They clarified one thing yesterday. They said the 60% on payroll is not a cliff. If you spent 59 on payroll, you don't have to pay it all back. It is a prorated version. So you only spent 50% on payroll and the rest on utilities and rent, then you pay back 90%. Wow. I mean, you pay back 10% and keep 90. So
yeah, that makes sense. So whenever this was first coming out, I know for me, particularly in all the different businesses, there was so much misinformation out there, and there was so much like, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? And it seems like we finally understood where the rules are, but I feel like, and maybe it's just me personally, but I would be willing to bet other people on this call felt like I've missed the train, and kind of like it was a guessing game. It was the wild, wild west at first. You kind of had to stick your foot in, hoping you got something. If you did, you didn't know what was going to happen. Do you feel like, and have you seen with, all of your different clients, is it too late right now as of June 9th to apply for some of these programs? And if not, then what is the best way? Maybe we can open it up, get some people's individual questions on advice, but is it too late to even try and seek it, whether that's a PPP or say an SBA IDL grant? Because I know those were super popular and everybody wanted the free $10,000 essentially. So maybe answer that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Lots of speculation, lots of changes, lots of rumors, lots of fear and uncertainty. For the PPP, it is not too late. I was part of a webinar last week, and 4 or 5 people did not think they were eligible for the PPP, and they learned otherwise and went and applied, and they have since received their funds. So the PPP is still open. It's been a few days since I looked, but they had over 50 billion left last time I looked. I would guess they probably got over 20 or 30 billion still available right now. So there's still funds available. You apply through a bank or a banker. You can't go directly to the SBA. You can't go directly to the SBA website. You have to go through some sort of lending institution that's SBA approved. Most all banks, bankers, local, large banks handle this process. They have applications. Each bank's a little different on what you have to submit with the application. Some do it manually, some do it online. And then there's some big boxes out there that are doing it electronically. You've got like Intuit and some other online banks that are offering those options. I prefer the personal local bank option because it's just seemed to be faster and smoother, and you got somebody you can talk with. So that route has worked a little smoother than what I've seen with clients. But right now, everybody is as dialed in as they have been through this whole process on the application side. I've seen funding turn around in 4 days. The SBA is not behind right now. Bankers aren't slammed or behind. You get your application in, the bank gets it to the SBA, they turn around the funds, it direct deposits in 4 days, you've got your money. I think this is still in place. I haven't heard any different. There is a June 30th deadline to apply.
Really?
So
quick. Yeah.
So that's coming up. So you can still apply if you're self-employed, if you're a business, if you have employees. There's no reason not to, in my opinion.
And you said 50 billion is still left to give out over the next 20 days. Is that right?
That's the last I saw. It's been a week or so since I looked at that number, but yeah, there's still plenty of money available through the program, and it really is essentially now the rule change free money. It's easily forgivable. If not, it's a 1% interest rate. If you own a business or you have investments or you have some sort of business knowledge or interest, if you can't make more than 1% with these funds, you're in bigger trouble. So I think from a financial standpoint, from an accounting standpoint, it's a no-brainer to go get. Here's the deal here. And people get these conspiracy mindsets when it comes to these things and come up with these scenarios of they think you're going to get screwed. There's really no way to screw this up. Either it's all forgiven or you pay it back at 1%.
What happens, Chad? What happens if, say, I take the money and I spend it all on whatever? I give it all to employees and they leave and I still have no business in 3 months. I mean, essentially what you're saying is you don't have to repay it, right?
No, you give it to employees in any form over the next 24 weeks. You don't have to repay it. If you take it and spend it on 3 new vehicles for your business, you are going to have to repay it, but it's a 1% rate. So, you can choose how to handle this. And again, you really can't screw it up. And I think the important thing here, this is a stimulus package. Nobody's trying to screw you on this. Nobody's trying to come on the back end and make you pay it back when you thought you didn't have to, or make you pay a higher rate. It's a stimulus, which means they want you to get it and dump it into the economy. They're trying to stimulate the economy. So it is a business tool. If you don't use it as a business owner, I just don't see a scenario where that's a smart decision in most cases.
So I guess one more question and then we'll go and open up the mic kind of, but is EIDL grants, because say I'm a single member entity and I don't have any employees, it sounds to me like I may not qualify for PPP. So I know they were talking about EIDL for that situation. Is that still in effect, or is any legislation changed to say where if you are a single member entity, such as I own an entity that owns a rental property, is there any way, shape, or form for me to still apply for PPP?
For PPP, that is still an option if you showed a net profit in 2019.
Okay.
All of your PPP formulas for the self-employed person or the single member person goes off your average 2019 profit. Most rental real estate or storage facility owners or anybody in the commercial or residential rental world of real estate
Mm-hmm.
does not show a profit because of the awesome tax rules behind depreciation.
Yeah.
By the time you write off interest and repairs and depreciation and other things associated with rental, it's a great vehicle for saving taxes, but it usually means you probably show a break even or a loss on your tax return.
Yeah.
So most rental real estate investors and self-employed individuals, the PPP is not an option because you don't show a profit from your 19 tax return from that. So the EIDL was kind of a backup plan to that. They said, hey, apply for the EIDL. We'll give you a $10,000 grant. You don't have to pay it back. And then that is a gateway into the actual EIDL loan, which
Mm-hmm.
is a much bigger amount you do pay back. And all that came out. That was the big fuss. That was the big hype. Get a free 10 grand. Do it on the SBA website, 3-day approval. This is quick and this is easy. Man, that thing
it blew up, didn't it?
sank like the Titanic, dude.
Yeah.
It locked down. SBA quit responding and communicating.
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks later, nobody heard anything. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, no communication, deposits started showing up.
Mm-hmm.
$1,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. And then they released and said, we changed the rules on you. It's not $10,000 anymore. It's $1,000 per employee. So if you applied for the EIDL and you click the grant box, then you got $1,000 per employee. You don't have to pay that back. All that's your money to keep. Now there's a little caveat there. If you got the PPP, it all kind of goes into that forgiveness formula.
Okay.
But anyway, so all that happened with the EIDL. Some people got 1,000, some people got nothing, some people got 10 grand in silence. Nobody heard anything for 2 or 3 more weeks. And then about 8 days ago, emails about loans started showing up.
Mm-hmm.
You've been approved for your EIDL loan. And they're like, wow, I thought this was dead. I haven't heard anything.
Have any of those been issued? Do you know?
They have. So I saw probably 18 to 25 emails come through in the last 10 days. Most businesses, keep in mind when applying for the EIDL, it was about 4 minutes of questions. You didn't submit any financials. You didn't turn in any reports. You put 3 figures on there: your revenue, your cost of goods, your expenses. That was it. And your personal information, your business name.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all 20 to 25 of the emails that came through from clients of mine and my own personal businesses has been approved for an EIDL loan of between 80 and 150 grand.
Really?
That's right. So the original terms were talking about a 10-year period.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of these loans, every single one I've seen has been a 3.75% rate, 30-year AM. 3.75 fixed.
So let's break this down real quick. If I were a real estate investor and I just got approved for 150 grand, I could take that money, go out, break it into 3 $50,000 down payments, and then go and buy 3 rental properties with the money the government just gave me. Is that right?
Kind of. We'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
So you're right. If you got 150, and most businesses got 150, that's the most common amount that I've seen. It's 3.75%, 30-year AM.
Mm-hmm.
Your payments are $731 a month and don't start until 12 months down the road. So July next year, I got to start paying $731 a month. And I can choose to pay it off early. There's no prepayment penalty. It is a fixed rate loan that's pretty easy and pretty clean. From the timing I've seen, it's all DocuSign. It's all via email. There's 3 steps to it. It takes less than 5 minutes. You get approved for it. You follow those 3 steps via email. Funds show up in your account in 5 to 6 days. So 150 grand is deposited, no questions asked. You never submit financials. You never show a tax return. You never talk to anybody. Nothing happens. And all they say is, all right, we'll check in with you in 12 months and your payments start.
Wow.
And that's all we know right now. But here's what happens in your scenario that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
There is some rules behind it. The money has to be spent for business purposes.
Okay.
Can't
Is
be
expanding.
It can't. Well, it can't be used all at kind of identifies is it can't be used to refinance other SBA loans or refinance long-term debt.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read in several places it can't be used for additions, large renovations, or to purchase new buildings or real estate. So according to the rules, you can't use it to go out and buy new stuff. It has to be spent on your existing business and your existing business purposes or operations. Now,
could I use it for marketing funds to go find new real estate and not necessarily buy that real estate with those funds, but as a method to get the real estate inbound?
Absolutely. And that's the important thing. This thing isn't tracked dollar for dollar. It mixes with all your other funds. So if you're bringing in $30,000 a month rent, well, you can spend the 150 to meet your monthly obligation.
You can say, well, we didn't use that money for that. We
used
this
all
money.
the rent to buy the new stuff.
Yeah. And we used all that loan to pay all our expenses, right?
That's right. That's
just
perfectly
slide the hat. Sure.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of flexibility here. You just can't be sitting around with no income and use all those funds to go buy something. That's where you get yourself in trouble. Now, all that being said, I think as long as you're making your monthly payments,
they ain't gonna care.
Nobody's coming to check. Nobody's coming to look.
Again, stimulus money, right?
Unless you default on this thing, then there's probably not a whole lot of eyes on you. But if they do catch you on a misappropriation of funds, or you do something shady with the funds, you have to pay back 1.5 times principal.
So the penalty isn't jail or anything like that. It's whatever. If say I got $100,000 and I misappropriated all that, I went out and bought a rental house. They're going to say, you couldn't do that. You need to pay us back $150,000 and say, okay, well, the rental house is now worth 200. So I'll sell it, give you guys your 150, and I made 50 grand off your money. Right. I mean, is that a possibility?
That is, from what I understand, that's a possibility. I think they have the authority to throw some charges at you, but I don't think they would as long as you paid it back. Now, if you spend it on a rental house and they said you got to pay us back 1.5 times, you screwed this up, and you said screw you, then yeah, you're probably going to be some charges.
Okay, well, this is super helpful, and I want to open it up here to anybody. We got a couple people on the line here, so if any of you guys, Nick, Kenman, Troy, Xavier, if any of you guys have any questions, unmute yourself, and Chad here is gonna answer it for you. This could be any question. It could be about if you've already gotten money, if you've applied for money and hadn't gotten it.
Let me touch on this real quick because we didn't talk about this.
Okay.
The EIDL is closed out.
Oh, okay.
If you do not apply for it in March or April, it's gone.
Okay.
They completely shut it down. You could only apply through the SBA website. Probably 3 to 4 weeks ago, they shut the SBA EIDL process down. Now it's open for agricultural-based businesses only. That was the last update that I was aware of, and on their SBA website is if you were in the farming or agricultural industry, you could still apply for something EIDL, but all normal businesses or real estate businesses or anybody in a normal operation could no longer apply. So PPP is still an option for you. EIDL is not anymore.
Gotcha. Okay. Do any of you guys have any questions before we let Chad go? So I think if you're on your phone, you can press, was it *7 on Zoom? Or if you're on your computer, you just unmute.
So I see a couple of questions here on the chat. Okay. Some people ask me about the payroll percentage. The new rule says 60%. Instead of 75% having to be spent on payroll for the PPP, 60% now has to be spent on payroll over 24 weeks. There's another question. How can I get a copy of the latest update? You can just Google it. It's everywhere. It's called the Flexibility Act. You can Google PPP Flexibility Act. That's the name of the actual new bill, and it'll pull up all the details. And lots of sites lay it out. One of my favorites right now, Forbes, does a really good job of providing updates and keeping things there from that standpoint of putting those into layman terms, what's released in some of those bills. So you may want to check out Forbes.com. It's a pretty reliable source.
So what I heard on this call is that the new act that has come out as of last Friday, June 5th, something, yeah, June 5th,
Yeah.
was very good for people who have already gotten the PPP or who can get the PPP. It will benefit them in the future. It's also very good news that they're extending the timeframes in which it has to be repaid. Is there anything about more money? Because I know they were wanting to print another trillion or so dollars. Did that happen last Friday, or is that unresolved?
It did not. That's unresolved right now. There was lots of differences in opinion across the aisle on a second act. I think the HERO Act got proposed, and it was an 1,800-page bill and a couple other things on a second stimulus package. That is on halt right now. There were some strong differences of opinion of what that should look like from Democrats and Republicans. In that last version we saw was going to be a second check to individuals, $1,200 or $2,000. It was also going to be a stimulus for rental landlords and provide some sort of monthly income through the rest of the year. I think there was some, a lot of you probably experienced, there was some incorrect information on tenants didn't have to pay rent by some governments in some
That's
states.
That's just what the picket sign said. That wasn't,
Yeah, that
real.
was some confusion there. So there's been several versions of a new stimulus bill that that has offered some relief to individuals, to business owners, and primarily to landlords. But the Republican side wanted to wait until June, sometime a little later in the year, and let's watch all this PPP and EIDL money play out. Let's see what happens. And so I do think, I mean, to be honest, because it's an election year and there's a lot of attention around it, I do think there will be some other version of a stimulus. I think it's more political than necessarily economy based right now. So I think we will see some other version of something come through from a political standpoint. What I can tell you, and this is my opinion, and I'll share it with all of you because a lot of you are investors and a lot of you are in the real estate market, and you're wondering what's going on with businesses and economy and things. From my standpoint, in my opinion, and my exposure to my clients and my personal businesses that I own, right now, the individuals and the business owners I see are financially more stable than they went into this. So from an economy standpoint and from a commercial real estate and residential real estate standpoint, people and businesses right now have more money than they did in February sitting in the
Let's give context here, Chad, because I know you well. A lot of these people here don't know you. Chad, how many clients do you serve?
We serve around 4,000 individual tax clients, and I serve around 460 corporations from an accounting and a tax standpoint.
So whenever he says that he's seeing not just me as a real estate investor, name off some of the other industries that of your clients you serve.
Sure. Restaurants and bars, attorneys, retail businesses, rental real estate, marketing companies, service industry businesses,
manufacturing,
scrap yards, medical, doctors' practices, surgeons, surgery centers, online businesses, online retail, everything across the board. What we're seeing is while business is down and while some businesses are crushing it, some businesses have closed their doors. But between unemployment paying $700 to $900 per week for employees, the PPP and the EIDL, and the fact that everybody's been sitting at home for 8 weeks and can't spend any freaking money anywhere, I'm not seeing like other recessions and other things I've been through in the past where people don't have money. People have money. They just can't quite go out and create transactions with it. So from what I've seen, is starting to bounce back. I think you've seen in the stock market, my God, the world is burning down and the thing is growing by 1 or 2% a day. It's crushing it. It's in the last 30 days, I've seen probably
it's back to where it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So we haven't had any losses through the year.
No, I've probably seen a 25% increase in the last 30 days. It's been insane. And I think that's a good indicator of what's truly behind the scenes going on from a money standpoint. We've got a lot of unemployment still. We got a lot of businesses that still are not open, but I just haven't seen a problem with cash flow and cash. I haven't seen in our area the real estate market change.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it really become any tougher to get commercial or residential real estate loans.
I've actually seen,
yeah.
talking from a mutual friend of ours who's a agent in town, is that you can't even, like, if a property comes on the market, it sells like that because there's no inventory. Nobody wants to move. So when things do come on the market, they're actually getting higher prices.
That's exactly what I've experienced as well. So that's a little bit of just opinion and insight from my side that can help educate you on my experience of what I'm seeing from an economy, from a business, and from a real estate standpoint in our area. So
sure,
unless we have some version of a second wave that's pretty substantial, or some really bad news come out, I see the fall and moving into the new year being a pretty good opportunity for everybody all the way around. And I think you can use these funds to really add fuel and to leverage on some things and come out of this in a great position.
Sure. Well, guys, you heard it here. I know Chad's got to hop off. I have to hop off as well. Chad, thank you so much. If people want to get in contact, because I know that I've been following you and keeping up with all of your updates, but if people here are listening to this or seeing this today, next week, next month, what's the best way to kind of reach out to you and to follow your updates or to reach you personally?
Sure, absolutely. So Instagram, I run an Instagram page called Serial CFO, SERIAL CFO. I try to do some videos, updates, keep everybody up to speed on what's going on with the current environment of SBA and PPP and EIDL, and also a lot of tax tips for real estate, for business, for individuals. Keep you educated on the cutting edge, what you can and can't do from a tax standpoint. My office is called the Tax Shelter. Website's thetaxshelter.com, and my email is chad@thetaxshelter.com. Always happy to answer questions, help guide people, and help however I can. So I appreciate you having me. Always enjoy catching up with you and seeing the awesome things going on, and happy to help anybody however I can.
Cool, man. Well, hey, thanks so much, guys. You heard it here. If you haven't yet gotten any money, there's still PPP money out there. If you have any questions, reach out to Chad at Serial, not like a bowl of cereal, but like a serial killer. Serial CFO on Instagram. Shoot him a direct message or an email, Chad at the Tax Shelter. And if there's any questions, then I'm going to send out this replay posted on YouTube. You guys can reach out to me, reach out to Chad. Hope this was helpful, and see you guys soon. Bye.
See ya.